It involves Ashesi University in Ghana, ETH Zurich from Switzerland, and industry partners from across sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so this is an overview of the talk. I will start with the background, capturing the challenge of education in Africa, and then I would move on to the summary of the proposal between the partners. And I would also elaborate on the partners involved, and particularly on the role of industry in this partnership. I would also describe some unique features of this collaboration, and then move on to the benefits for industry partners and higher educational institutions. And we'll also present some lessons learned so far in the development of this collaboration between the partners. So to start with, rapid population, in the next 30 years, by 2050, Africa's population would be around 2.5 billion people. Especially youth population is expected to double to about 830 million, and with 10 to 12 million youth entering the job markets every year. However, a little over 3 million jobs are created per year, which shows already a stark contrast between the number of youth that enter the job market every year and the jobs that are created. Secondly, this rapid increase in population in Africa would also imply that there will be more mouths to feed. And currently, the situation in Africa looks like this. There are about 220 million people undernourished in sub-Saharan Africa. There are over 60 million children as already stunted in Africa, with 10 million children overweight in Africa. So there's already a double burden of malnutrition, where on one side, some and quite a high number of children are undernourished, and on the other side, another number is overweight. But this double burden of malnutrition would also be a challenge, taking into consideration the rapid population growth that has been projected for the next 30 years in Africa. The other challenge is the surge of unemployment. I mean, by 2025, African youth population will be around 512 million, and 181 million of these youth would be underemployed, unemployed, or inactive, according to the African Development Bank projections. So all these points are quite challenging for education in Africa and also for economic development in Africa. More importantly is the challenge of high graduate unemployment, which in part is due to the skills mismatch between educational outputs and industry requirements. For example, currently most institutions will promote learning by rote instead of learning by deep understanding, where students are forced to memorize what they learn through repetition. When do we change the focus to skills development and also the development of soft skills? And these are a number of points we'll have to discuss later on. So this led to a number of questions, such as how can we harness a growing young population in Africa for increased economic productivity? Certainly, there's an advantage in population growth, even though it comes with its attendant challenges. So how do we harness this young growing population in Africa for increased economic productivity? The second question that came to mind was, how do we align these educational outputs to the requirements of industry? Thirdly, how do we effectively collaborate with industry to align curriculum to the needs of the job market in Africa, especially? And also, how do we provide graduates with experiential learning opportunities to foster academic growth, economic and personal growth? These are the questions that were on the table when we started the discussion to initiate this collaboration. And this led to the proposal for an overall model for tertiary education in Africa, which is focused, one, on the establishment of a new master level educational program in engineering for highly talented students in sub-Saharan Africa. The courses will be delivered by lecturers from both Ashesi University and ETH Zurich at the Ashesi campus. So this model proposes in-person teaching and no remote teaching compared to other courses you will find on the continent. The program is developed in close collaboration with industry partners to ensure that graduates will effectively contribute to the economic development of the SAF region. And this is one of the key points in this collaboration. So the beginning of the collaboration was between Ashesi University, which is highly ranked in the world, among the world's top 400. Ashesi has a strong focus on ethical and entrepreneurial education, which is what the shift in education will look like in the coming years. Also, Ashesi has quite an excellent gender balance in terms of students population 1:1, which is quite enviable. The other institution, which is ETH Zurich, which is in Europe, is also ranked as quite high rankings for engineering and technology education. Now, ETH Zurich was very pivotal, played a pioneering role in the industrialization of Switzerland, and so has quite a rich wealth of experience in terms of translating education into outputs and also collaboration with industry. And so these two partners were strategically positioned both in Africa, specifically Ghana, and with the ETH Zurich in Europe with its expertise and experience. We also had to recruit industry partners in this collaboration. So we targeted partners that were active in the sub-Saharan African region. Industries such as ABB, Barry Callebaut, Beulah, Nestle, Tetra Pak, Lafarge Holcim, and HBW Bargain. These are industries which are active in the sub-region. Also, they anticipate the market growth in this region, so they are looking to expand. They are looking for highly talented students or recruits. These industries are looking to recruit highly skilled leaders, in particular engineers. A number of these industries already in the sub-region focus heavily on employing expatriates in such managerial roles. And so the focus was to how do we build capacity in Africa to change this narrative where we can actually develop talent pipeline here that will go into managerial positions or lead teams in these industries. And so that's how come industry was recruited to join this. Now, the role of industry was clearly elaborated through a number of iterations and discussions with Ashesi University, with ETH Zurich, and also with the industrial partners that we identified. So the role of industry was to focus on three pillars. One is to support curriculum development. So by providing crucial information about the competency profiles that are required for engineers in the local job markets in the sub-Saharan African region. The second role of industry was to ensure the integration of students into the local economy through the provision of internship positions, mentoring, and also career opportunities. And this is a crucial part of this collaboration because it would defeat the purpose if we raise such highly skilled talents only for them to move out into Europe and into the Americas. The idea was to train local talents to work on the continent, to raise talents in Africa for Africa. Now, the third role of industry was to provide financial support by contributing to help cover the program cost, provide scholarship to students. With this collaboration, each industrial partner was given the opportunity to sponsor between 1 to 4 students per cohort, and the final number depending on the industry's discussions with partners Ashesi and ETH Zurich. Now, I would now want to speak a bit about what makes this initiative unique. With this current initiative between Ashesi University, ETH Zurich, and industry partners, we've identified so far 7 of them. The physical presence of ETH Zurich faculty members on the Ashesi campus who tandem teach these courses to students in Africa is an excellent case of supporting knowledge transfer in both directions. Faculty from ETH would benefit by teaching and collaborating with faculty from Ashesi, and then vice versa. So there's knowledge transfer in both directions. We also intimate that we present a graduate engineering program that includes focus on leadership, corporate responsibilities, and a number of relevant soft skills which are in high demand in industry currently. So there are a number of technical skills, but also non-technical skills, which are very important for working in industry, leading teams in industry. A third point which makes the initiative unique also is a close interaction with industry throughout the entire program to ensure that the program addresses the market needs. So there will be a continual engagement with industry year-on basis to update and tweak the curriculum to make sure it addresses the market needs in the sub-Saharan Africa region. A fourth point which is unique about this collaboration is that students that get enrolled onto this master's program would graduate with two concurrent degrees. They will graduate with a Master of Advanced Studies, MAS from ETH Zurich, which is awarded by the ETH Zurich. And then they would also graduate with an MSc in Mechatronics Engineering, awarded by Ashesi University. This is also, I believe, a motivating factor for a number of students because you get to graduate with two excellent degrees from two institutions. The fifth point that makes this initiative unique is the course structure. Block modules, the course will be organized in the form of block modules. So of 4 weeks, we would have 2 weeks of frontal lectures, and then 1 week for exam preparation, then 1 week for exam and a break where students get to prepare for the next block module. So in 4 weeks, 1 block is delivered, exams are taken, and the students get to prepare for the next module. So we believe all these 5 points make this initiative unique. Also just touched on a study by the British Council in 2014 that showed that employer engagement in course design and delivery was shown to have a positive effect on the employment outcomes. And so by engaging industry in the development of this program, we hope that they will have a positive effect on students' employment potential in industry. At this point, I would hand over to Dr. Nathan Amankwa to take you through the next slides.
Right. So this program would require that 2 faculty teach it. 1 person from ETH Zurich, 1 person from Ashesi University co-teach the same class. So there are multiple formats, and we actually tried it. We've piloted it in the past when ETH faculty visited campus. So it could be that in one lecture, one lecturer would teach a topic or a subtopic, and the other lecturer continues. It could be that that lecture is completely taught by, that whole lecture is completely taught by one lecturer. But then the second person is in the class supporting the lecture with questions and helping students, discussion time, solving problems, and so on. So both faculty would always be present in the class at every time. So we do not have the arrangement to do remote teaching where 1 person is remote and 1 person is local. Both will be present. And they'll be learning both ways because we found out that the Ashesi classes tend to be very interactive, very engaged. Students participate a lot. And that's something that ETH faculty, for example, could learn from Ashesi. And these courses will be taught eventually after the 7th year by just Ashesi faculty. So there'll be some methods transfer as well to keep the program going just as it was started. Next slide. Then the curriculum itself will not be handed to us, for example. We are developing together. So between Ashesi and ETH. And so we've actually started a process we get faculty to meet each other and together develop what should be in the course. So it is jointly owned. It's not like ETH has its courses to teach and Ashesi has its courses to teach, but for every single course, we have two faculty working on the actual content. What topic should be taught and when and how. So this is an ongoing process. We started for most of the courses for the first year and even started for some in the second year, well ahead of the scheduled start date. So this will be a very jointly owned curriculum and taught by two people, one from ETH, one from Ashesi. So regarding the curriculum itself, it's named Mechatronics, and the focus would be on production and automation because, first of all, we want to make it relevant to industry in sub-Saharan Africa. That would mean that, that would mean that it should be something that meets their needs. If you go to any production environment, there are things that industry needs. So industry has been involved in the discussion regarding what should be included. And so we are actually targeting content that will be beneficial to them. So there are some core areas. There will be automation, there will be production courses. Certainly, engineering is all mathematics and modeling. So there are mathematics courses. There are what we call physics. It's essentially the core concepts that make things work. And then there are numerical methods. Some problems cannot be solved mathematically. You only have to use a numerical method to accomplish this. And so all these would be included. Then there's a section of courses that are related to research. But before you graduate, you have to write a thesis. We would have students work in industry. There's a mandatory internship. And for this internship, they would work in industry, but also write up what they research. So there's an infusion of practice and theory from class or from school or from research. And so this would make the program unique as well. Then students would build knowledge from a range of fields. As we're going to see in the next slide. Next slide. Right. So for the first year, like we mentioned, it's a joint program. The first year's courses and part of the third year activity gives you the MAS degree. Students will come from mechanical engineering, computer engineering, electrical engineering, and a few other engineers, something like chemical engineering, because they also do production. And to bring everyone up to the same level, but at a relatively advanced stage, we would cover some core content. And then the second year, we move on to talk about control systems, which is related to automation. So you see that three categories. Those in pink are related to automation and robotics. Those in blue are related to production and energy management. And then what might be what we call energy engineering perspective, that gives people a rounded knowledge and how to deal with people at those highlighted in green. So they are slightly shorter courses and there are fewer modules of that. So we have these in the first year in the second year and the third year. So you can go to the next slide. Right. So in the third year, in the first semester, we continue the program, but the second semester is a mandatory industrial internship where students have to go work with industrial partners or other industry to gain practical experience, also infuse some of what they've learned. So the industry itself benefits from that knowledge. At the same time, they also write up their thesis. Alongside this program, there'll be short seminars during the evenings for other topics like getting more-rounded knowledge about what goes on in Africa, as well as other themes that industrial partners might suggest. Next, and I'll hand over back to Wilfred or Max.
I'll take you through the last slides of this workshop, and now just to give you some ideas about the development of this program and also the benefits and finally some lessons that we learned so far in the deployment of this program. And as already described by Nathan, it was really like a collaborative approach, which you can see also with this picture. So it was like also seeing a bit the impact of the recent developments worldwide. So it was in the beginning interactive workshops in person as well between the Ashesi and the ETH team. And then due to the recent developments with the pandemic, shifted everything online, and we had Zoom calls every week, standing meetings to together and collaboratively develop the program and take it further stepwise. Next slide, please. And the important thing is that really all different partners contributed in this development. So throughout the process, ETH Zurich, Ashesi, and the industry partners were involved. And iteratively, we developed the content, the curriculum, and the structure overall. And that makes it also unique. It was such a collaboratively approach we've taken here, and really considered all the inputs. Also, as mentioned by Wilfried in the beginning, by the industry, which also helps to guide the curriculum that Nathan just presented to gear towards the needs that is required on the local market in the region, so that the graduates thereafter are highly sought after graduates with high potential being employed and also in leadership positions in certain industries. Next slides, please. And just to give you an idea about the timeline of this program development. So it all was kicked off already actually at the end of 2018, but it really caught on gears in 2019, where we started with the design phase, where everything was put down on paper, how in detail this collaboration for the joint master's program should look like, which then was carried over in 2020 to the formalization phase, where really everything in detail was worked out to basically reach one bigger milestone, which is a collaboration agreement between the two institutions, and also the inclusion of the industry partners, where we are now in a lucky position of the 7 industry partners that Wilfried already mentioned earlier on in this talk. And there was a major achievement of the formalization phase, to have everybody really agree to certain terms, to have these collaboration agreements fixed between the institutions, but also between institutions and the industry partners. That basically forming the base for now being leading into the implementation phase that we're currently in this year. And as you can see as well, there were various people involved from the get-go. We have our directorate team between ETH and Ashesi. And also we have a dedicated curriculum development coordinator who has been on board since the inception. As you can see in the program management team, there we had some changes, and as it happened, it also coincides with the phases. So we had one dedicated manager in the design phase, is Manuel, then going to the formalization phase, which was Johan, our predecessor, and then now being us 3 in the implementation phase, and also going further. So us 3 meaning is Dr. Mariette Mertens, who unfortunately could not join this call today due to another commitment which was only sorted on short notice. Then Wilfried Legber as well, being the coordinator at Ashesi, and myself. So between Mariette and myself, we coordinating tasks at ETH and Wilfried at Ashesi, and together we the management of this whole program. And now next year we're going into the running phase, where we also then welcome our first students and kick off the tandem teaching, and very excited to really bring this program to reality. Next slide, please. So what's in it for industry partners? Why were they interested? And to be honest, even like in the beginning, the first talks, so myself, I haven't been involved because, as you've seen, we joined recently, actually like beginning this year, this program. But in the beginning, when industry partners were engaged about the idea of developing this program together with a partner between a partner from Africa and from Europe, so being Ashesi and ETH, and developing a program that the industry contributes from the get-go to address local market needs, the industry was very excited about it. And they already expressed, that they have a very shortfall on highly skilled graduates, that they can support the industry in their development in the region, in sub-Saharan Africa. They can see there's this one benefit which resides from this great interest that the industry expressed right from the beginning to be part of this program, is they need highly skilled mechatronics engineers. And there is a lot of need for automation and production in the various fields, which you can also see with the different partners that we have in our program now, from Nestle being in food and beverage industry, then to ABB, which is high automation equipment, high-tech automation equipment, all the way to HPV, for example, who are running local operations on dried fruits. But all of them, what combines interest is all the interest to have highly skilled graduates with the background in mechatronics engineering. And by having also the opportunity for the students to have an internship within the program, is also that they can engage with the industry before they graduate, and that helps the industry also to scout already for talents upfront, and also basically thereafter engage with them directly for employment. And this collaboration also can result in future R&D projects. And together with Ashesi, we can see that certain companies in the region, in Ghana or in other countries in the region, they might be interested to look into certain aspects which they would like to optimize, to adapt certain equipment to certain needs locally, or may it be other projects. And then also, at the end of the day, it's to be part. The industry wants to be part of reaching the overarching goal of the sustainable industrial development in sub-Saharan Africa, and that also ties back to the motivation that was presented by Wilfried earlier on. Next slide, please. Thank you. And now, what's in it for higher education institutions? So the one thing is that engaging with industry, they can contribute towards the training of industry-ready graduates, because you already engage with the potential employers for the graduates. You already trim to a certain degree the curriculum in a way that's relevant for the employment thereafter. And as already said, and it's already said in the second point as well, so you trim it towards the needs of the job market. And also, one additional point which is interesting or important here as well, which came from the industry, is that they are very interested not only to have people who are very knowledgeable about mechatronics, so production automation skills, but also an amount of non-technical skills, meaning like team management, also understanding the broader context of what engineering and the impact on society means, so in terms of economics, but also in economic development and corporate social responsibility, so to have a well-rounded engineer. And that's basically helps the educational institutions to really train highly skilled and also ethical engineers for Africa. It's not only about being perfect in this engineering field, but also to have this well-rounded profile to understand the context of engineering and the impact on society, and also reaching the overarching goals that were presented earlier. And also at the end of the day, the industry and the additional partners, they enrich the curriculum. There can also be additional extracurricular activities presented to the partners, which is also very engaging and motivating for the students being part of such a program. Next slide, please. And we're still honored to seek additional industry support, especially from the region. So we are in a fortunate position to have strong partners at the moment, but we're still carrying on looking for further partners, especially to provide internships for the students throughout the program, then also for scholarships in the future, for a 2-year degree program, which we are developing concurrently with the 3-year program, that is the Ashesi-ETH program. And also for sure thereafter, for the graduates looking for jobs. So engaging with industries early on already supports the graduates finding jobs right after graduation. Next slide, please. Last but not least, lessons learned. So as you have seen, we are now in the implementation phase. So we've been working on this program for 3 years so far, and we are soon reaching the running phase where we really start teaching the first cohort of students. So unfortunately, we can't tell you yet about the reality of the success rate of the students on the job market after graduation, because we are not there yet. So that will be next year, counting 3 years more. But what we would like to share already is like our lessons that we had so far in the development of this unique and quite exciting program. Is that one lesson, identify and engage with partners early on. So really, as soon as you develop an idea to run something like this, a collaboration across continents and also with extra non-higher educational partners, being industries or others, engage very early on. We did this already in this program, but realized it might be even better to even do one step earlier. As always, you see afterwards what could be optimized, but like one message for the audience: start early to engage everyone. Then also, such a program can't lift itself from the ground without funding. You need a certain amount of budget to cover the operational costs. We're doing this with extra supporting partners. We're very grateful that we have several supporting partners. One of them, for example, being the Swiss Secretary of Economic Affairs, SECO, from Switzerland, who are a great supporter of this program, and they help covering the operational costs of the program so far until it lifts off itself. So another message is we started engagement early, but again, it might be even a good idea to already engage with potential supporters or funding institutions that you have in your region or that you're aware of early on, to have them on board, and then make it a neat package that you have already your partners lined up, you're clear on the objectives, but also you have the funding backing right away. Last message you would like to share is also in terms of coordination. So we would say we started early to have coordination between both institutions right away, but however, what would be an ideal situation if the capacity allows it and already available funding allows it, to have two dedicated coordinators for such a collaborative programs right away. We unfortunately couldn't do this due to certain constraints we had in the program. Nevertheless, it was so far successful to work together, but we already saw this as a lesson learned. If there's any chance you can accommodate this, it is good to have coordinators sitting on both sides from the get-go. And these are just some lessons learned we like to share openly, kind of as an open source idea that you see as well how we developed this program and what you could take further if you think about launching something similar. And then finally, please, the last slide. Would I express a big thank you to everyone. Also, thanks for being able to join this very exciting education collaboration event. And last but not least, also thanks to all our industry partners who are very essential in lifting off this program and also providing all the opportunities for the students thereafter, but also supporting partners. As mentioned, SECO being one major contributor towards and supporter of this project, but also other private and donors and foundations. Thank you very much. I'm handing back to Wilfried now.
Thank you very much, Max and Nathan, for your presentation. So I should have mentioned from the start that once the presentation is over, we would open up this session for Q&A. So you can already start to post your questions in the chat or raise your hand and ask your questions. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So we are open to questions now. We'll have a Q&A session. So industry partners in this collaboration are providing scholarship funding for students. So from tuition fees to accommodation, engineering equipment, laptop, to also travel back home. So 2 travels are funded per year, 1 travel per semester, which is funded by industry partners. So this is what the industry partners are focused on funding in this collaboration. Now we have a second type of partner, which are the supporting partners, which involves the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO. There are a number of foundations, private foundations, that have also supporting this program. And the supporting partners are providing funding for the program administration. So the supporting partners provide a bigger chunk of the funding support to this program to run the program over the 7-year course, whilst the industry partners are focused on providing students with scholarships. So they provide up to 3 students per cohort with scholarships, which involves full accommodation, which involves a fully sponsored scholarship for students. I don't know if Max would want to add, or Nathan.
Yes, so they have been involved in curriculum development. They are also supporting some students, fully funded, but like has also been mentioned, some other industry partners will provide internships for students, and also on graduation, they have the first right of refusal to hire students, so they can take on students after graduation. But the other part, we also do have some students who will be fee paying, and to follow the similar Ashesi structure. Some are full fee paying, some are partial fee paying. But in essentially for the first 5 years, we have 5 to 7 years, we have a lot of industry support to make this happen. And then the program would hopefully successfully run on its own, hoping to keep some of the industrial partners still engaged.
One other question here is, could you, I think this was probably responded to a little earlier by Wilfred, but could you please share a little bit more about how, a few of the practical steps you took to actually get industry partners on board? Like, a few practical tips on how to bring industry partners on the table to help them identify what value they get out of this, out of partnering for a program like this. Thank you.
I will start, and Max or Nathan can add on to it. So from our experience with this collaboration so far, it appears industries are looking for such opportunities. Industries have challenges with process automation, with running their processes. They are also looking for highly skilled talent in the sub-region as well. From my engagement with a number of industries like Barry Callebaut and Nestle, it was evident that they were finding it difficult to find the right talent, the right match, or talent with the right skill set for the jobs they have. A number of them commented on the fact that you have students come in and go, but students are so focused on theory, they lack these soft skills to thrive in industry, and also to integrate easily into teams in industry. So there's that need by industry, and there's on the one side, and there's also the need by HEIs or academic institutions on the other side. Now the question is, how do we bridge this gap or this need? And from our engagement, we practically went by first identifying industries that are active in terms of business within the sub-region. So it's always helpful if you already do a background check to find which industries are active within your region of focus. And secondly, which industries are actively engaged in the focus of the educational program. So if it's engineering, which industries are focused on engineering tasks and engineering competencies. If it's agriculture, which industries are more focused on, for example, food production or food processing. So trying to identify industries that are in the focus area of the educational program is very helpful. Identification of the industries on this program started with a similar approach, doing a background research, putting together a number of potential industrial partners who might be interested in supporting this program, or who have a challenge with finding the right talent to fill certain key positions. That was one of the initial steps we took. The second step practically was also to engage industries. So we actually took it forward by speaking to representatives from the industry partners and scheduling in-person meeting, approaching industry and actually presenting the proposal. It also helps to put together a proposal clearly on paper, which aids sharing with industry. We're able to put this proposal clearly on paper, and we're able to share it with industry in in meetings and also get or receive feedback from industry on what we should tweak and what we should improve and what their gaps and their needs are. So one is identifying potential partners. Two is approaching and engaging with these partners on what is relevant to them, on what is the gap in that focus field. I would say another practical approach was also to be open. We found that it's also helpful to be open. I mean, you could have a proposal on paper, but once you engage industry, you find out the focus of that proposal would have to shift to actually address the needs of the market. Many a times, educational institutions have certain fixed objectives on their mind, and they always would think that industry will be interested in this. The whole process is collaborative, so you have to be ready to tweak to your objectives or your goals to capture the needs of industry. And so once you're willing to go back and forth, you're willing to amend and tweak your proposal, industry we also find out are very welcoming, also very excited to work. I mean, there's clearly money, there's clearly funding to support such programs. And the challenge is always, who do we find? Who do we work with? Who do we collaborate with? How do we find the right partners? So I think it's something we've also learned, that it's helped for higher education institutions to approach industries, have this discussion, sit down, and then put together a proposal that serves the needs of both the industry partners and also the educational institutions. So these are some of the practical steps we took. And of Max or Nathan will add on to this.
Maybe just to add from our side, I mean, there we have to be straight and also say, like, ETH is quite in a fortunate position that there has been a lot of engagement with industry in the past, in research projects as well. So ETH could tap into an existing network, a strong network to certain industries that also became partners. So there we were quite fortunate. And taking these connections helps us to get further connections. But if you start from scratch, so to say, and there are not strong ties to industries in your area, one other good route also is to go by alumni network to see, okay, which students work in industries that could be potential partners, and go by that road basically into the industries and find the right contact person straight, and that might also be helpful. And that's what we are chasing for further partners as well, for example. But otherwise, Wilfried has covered it well, so wouldn't have more points to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan and Max. My question is, how do you engage industry in developing curriculum that is aligned to the needs of the job market? How would you, I mean, this goes to either Max or Nathan, any of you is welcome to expand on this. How would engaging industry in developing curriculum? Yes, please go ahead, Nathan.
Right, so right from the very beginning, we got involved with industry and tried to find out what the needs are. And so we've had a series of different talks at different points with the industry partners, both on the ETH, speaking to the Swiss companies working in in a number of African countries. And then we've also had interactions locally with some of the industry players in Ghana. And so we got a sense from them what they needed. And so you find that the curriculum we have is not purely just the engineering, but it has other courses included to make the engineers rounded. They're going to end up, with an MSc, they're going to end up leading teams. So there's such a course. There's a bit of finance as well, more like finance for non-finance people, just to get the engineers a bit more rounded. So speaking to industry early, generally they tend to add a lot more that's not engineering. And so we kind of had to constrain that as well, because then the program is completely changing. So speaking to industry, they have needs, they see what it is, and then we try and get it to fit somewhere in the curriculum. And that's speaking to them has been good.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I wouldn't have more to add from my side. So that's correct. And as Nathan said, industry is very interested to add non-technical courses to the curriculum. So they're very keen on that, to have people who can take over leadership positions thereafter and support with the development of their activities.
Well, Wilfred, before you continue, I noticed there's this comment here from Imad. How many graduates per year have found jobs? I believe Max talked about that earlier, that this program is new and it's just starting, so they don't have that data quite yet. But I'm guessing you probably have some projections, some targets that you're estimating.
Yes, thank you, Rose. So as you rightly said, the program is just starting. It will start next year in January. Currently, we are starting with the first cohort of 40 students, and then the second year we add on another 40 for the next 7 years. Yes, we don't have figures for how many graduates have found jobs, but what we are sure of and what we can bank on is the experience of Ashesi University. We should not forget that this program is going to be run by Ashesi on Ashesi campus. And looking at the data from Ashesi from 2015 until now, we are looking at a 98% rate of employment after graduation after national service. So if this program is going to run, which is going to be run by Ashesi on Ashesi campus, with industry partners, we can't be sure to go by this figure, because we are basing this on Ashesi's experience and also Ashesi's reach across industries in Ghana, but also in the sub-region. So Ima, I think your best indicator will be looking at Ashesi's record of 98% employment after graduation. That would be my answer for this.
Hello everyone. Thank you for the time. I've been listening and it's interesting. Okay, so my first question is, usually to do these collaborations, it usually requires like a startup grants. And I understand that the Swiss government counterpart was kind of interested and kind of brought this on the table, because I looked at the chart. It shows that the design phase actually started from the Swiss side of things. Then if you have, like for me, I work for, I have a startup consulting firm for higher education, and these are some of the things we want to facilitate. So sometimes to start off is usually challenging. And so what's your take as regards to funding in starting off this whole process? Largely because most universities, maybe the public ones, do not have like these funds to kick off these things. And our kind of work is more with the public universities. And I understand the place of Ashesi, which is less bureaucratic and more speedy in terms of how they conduct the activities, and we're able to just speed up this kind of thing. So I would like your take on this. Then lastly, I will also mention, with this program, is from the design, is there like an interest to involve like other universities to join the consortium, if this is part of the design? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bertha. So I will start, and my co-speakers would add on as needed. So the challenge of funds is, yes, real. I can identify with your concern and this challenge for many of the educational institutions in Africa. I would say that one, it will be helpful to start with a smaller partners. So in terms of funding, obviously, if you're looking at the bigger institutions or international institutions without any connection, without any alumni connection, which is also a good route to go, you could already start to look for local partners within your region. So within the region in which your educational institution is, there are certainly local partners which you could already approach to raise funds. I mean, it will be smaller funds, but I find that it's always easier to engage or to identify and engage local partners who are willing to give you, for example, a $10,000 or $20,000 to support a project. And once you have these partners on board, you then reach out for the larger funding institutions. As a scientist, I would answer this also based on my background, that you find there's a lot of money looking for projects, and there are a number of people looking for money for projects. So this mismatch is always an enigma, I would say. But from what we've experienced, it's always helpful to reach out. It's always helpful if you're looking for international funding organizations. It's always helpful to establish a contact and to reach out. You can always have this conversation. What are you looking for? You can also find their focus areas even from the website and doing a bit of background. What are they passionate about? What are they investing in? What are they willing to give money to support? There are also a number of foundations in Africa and also across Europe that are willing to give money to support such a worthy cause like expanding capacity for education in Africa or enhancing technical capacities for highly skilled students. So one size does not fit all. I would say you'd always have to look, you always have to read on the website of these funders, find out, try and establish a contact, and then start the conversation from there. How do you engage? What are they looking for? How do you answer their needs? I mean, there's always money ready to support worthy cause, I believe. So I would say it's first is to initiate contact and then start the conversation from there. And then you can build on that to form stronger collaborations and also potential funding for the projects. I will touch briefly on the question of are there further universities engaged in this? For this initiative, the idea is to create an educational hub at Ashesi. So the second point of this, the focus of this collaboration is that students are targeted from across sub-Saharan Africa. So it's not just focused on Ghanaian students, but it's targeted to highly talented students across sub-Saharan Africa. But the idea is to have the hub in Ashesi, where students from across the continent come to study at Ashesi. As we mentioned in the beginning, this is a model. It's a model for cooperation or for collaboration between academia and industry. So this is a model you will find with a number of years. I mean, I guess by next year or in 2 years, we'll have more concrete data. And so once this model is viable, this is something that can be implemented by other universities. Other universities could learn from this and also implement this with other programs. It could be in a program in computer science, in other fields. This model can be implemented. So it's more of a model, and yes, other universities, as the Education Collaborative focuses on, other universities can learn from this and also implement it in their region, focusing on the course or subject-specific focus of that university. So this is what I would say for now. I don't know if Nathan or Max would want to add something more.
Not too much to add, but it's start the conversation early and getting a few key players is essential. There was one industrial partner that we started speaking to here in Ghana, and they did not they found it interesting, but didn't think they would support the program. But when others came on board, they then decided to come on board as well. And then they were actually chasing us, even to put in courses that would benefit them. So yes, it can be challenging, but getting a few companies convinced about the program, getting them on board, then it becomes easier to get others as well, because you can see the benefits. Then it got to a point when we're wondering, what if we have more industrial partners than we actually desire? What do we do? Which was something we had to grapple, because that increased the number of students in the class, and we had a cap on the size of class. But of course, more funding is good, so we had to find a way to work around that. So getting some on board who see the point is helpful, and then the rest come.
Again, we're in a fortunate position now as we sit with the program, but like if you start from the get-go, from the inception stage, if you manage to get one larger corporation, as Nathan says, who's like really interested, who can draw more attention from others. One thing that we did also with our industry partners is not only talking to them about scholarships for students, but we also discussed to get a small budget for startup costs. So like a first initial and once-off only donation by industry. So if you're not in a position yet that you have another donor institution or foundation on the hand, maybe with one or two industry partners that you maybe get excited about it to start, maybe to even engage with them and say, would you be able to give us a certain amount of risk budget, you can call it, to kick off a first development of the program? Because I think if you have certain details on the ground and written down, and maybe certain structures established, that might also then give more confidence to foundations. So there could be another thing or idea that could be added to new developments from the scratch.
I'll go ahead. Let's have a couple of quick questions to throw in there. So Max, this will go to you. So why was the focus on production and automation? How did we come about the focus on production and automation with the industry partners?
So there the focus where it comes from is, again, if you look at the partners, we get a wide range coming from different backgrounds, from food processing to really mechatronic equipment like ABB or Bühler, and also LafargeHolcim being a very different industry than HPV, for example. So we have quite a wide range of industry being involved, but the one thing that does combine all the industry is the need for production and automation equipment in their processes. So at the end of the day, whatever is your input, you run through a certain process, and then it becomes your output and product for the market. Even though the inputs for the industry might be different in the products as well, combined with the target group or your customers at the end of the day, what them all combines them is the core of it, to convert certain input to your product, to your output, and the need for making this conversion more efficient. And it doesn't matter which sector you are, even if you go to agriculture, there the need for more automation or more, I think I call it now like smart agriculture or precision agriculture, to increase efficiency, reduce losses or whatnot. The one combining factor is always like this production automation. Thank you. I hope that answered the question.
Matching partners. How did the ETH find Ashesi? How did Ashesi find the ETH? How was this process initiated, and how was this process accomplished? Finding partners that align with the focus of the collaborative or the program.
Can you say it more clearly? Funding partners or finding
partners?
Finding industrial partners.
Yes, I mean the academic institutions. So how did the ETH find Ashesi, and how did Ashesi find the ETH vice versa?
Right. So initially, actually, ETH reached out to us at Ashesi, and initially there wasn't. Ashesi has always done mostly just undergraduate programs, so there wasn't the intention to do a graduate program yet, even though we often have requests and we talk about it. But then we thought about it again and thought that we should explore it some more. So we had a series of meetings in person. We had ETH faculty visits or teams from ETH visits a couple of times, and that got the ball rolling. And there have been many events after that, but we found each other credible in our areas of expertise, and not just credible, but experts at what we would both do. So in Ghana, a lot of people might not necessarily know ETH. If you say MIT, people know MIT, but not necessarily ETH. But if MIT comes to you, you'll not say, okay, MIT, I'm thinking about it. It's similar with ETH. So those who know about European universities will know about ETH. It's like the MIT of Europe. So it wasn't something to let go. We thought we should explore further and see what we could do. And of course, the opportunity exists because there's the market need to get engineers who are skillful in this particular area. The BSc programs do not necessarily train mechatronics engineers. They train general engineers in electrical or mechanical. So when you go to industry, you still have to learn some more to do production and automation. But if you have an MSc that is well-rounded, which industry also wants, then it's something to pursue. So we explored it a lot more, and here we are today. But I think it's a good partnership. ETH also they did a lot of research. They didn't only speak to Ashesi, they spoke to other universities as well, and eventually settled on Ashesi.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Max, anything to add?
Nothing to add, actually. Thanks, Nathan.
Great.
Got it well. Yeah.
So based on what Nathan says, graduates from the program will be industry ready once they come out of school, because they are trained specifically for the job market, and there's no extra cost to the employer to retrain these graduates again in their roles. And also the industrial internships also help these graduates already have a feel of the work environment, and also develop some skills already on the job. So this is also an added advantage by including an internship with industry partners for students. They already have a feel of what they would be doing when they transition into industry. So these are a number of advantages I also picked up from what Nathan said. Thank you. Any more questions? Do we have any more?
I understand when you said ETH found Ashesi, but before then ETH also reached out to a number of universities. But I know the other colleague from ETH was not part of the design and the formulation stage, but it would be interesting if he has some thoughts or some ideas as regards to, this may be too much, but how they decided on Ashesi. Yeah, just interested. I'm just curious. I just want to know.
Thank you. Do I start or Max? You want to start?
I would actually ask you, Wilfred, to start, and Nathan, because you have more background to answer and give a good answer to this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethel. So that's an interesting question. So I was involved from the start in another role, but yes, I was involved from the start, and as Max and Nathan rightly said, the ETH approached Ashesi, and then we arranged a visit to Ashesi, but also to other universities across Ghana. And so we had discussions with the Ashesi board, with the founder, Patrick Ewua, visionary, who's a visionary leader, and also with Nathan and the faculty. And at these meetings, we presented a proposal, but also listened to feedback from the Ashesi faculty and also the executive body. And we found that the proposal almost aligned with the goals and the long-term goals as well of Ashesi University. The focus on entrepreneurship, the focus on skills development, the focus on soft skills training besides technical training. And so it was almost a match when we had this discussion with Ashesi. We spoke to other universities in Ghana and other universities that had more experience in terms of engineering, had run engineering programs for decades. But there was always a mismatch either with the system, either with the bureaucratic processes of other systems, or with the approach in terms of responsiveness. So I would say a number of factors went in favor of Ashesi. One was Ashesi was quite responsive. They were already forward-looking their goals as an institution was already aligned more to the goals also of ETH and also the program. And so we found these three factors heavily weighed in favor of Ashesi. And so it's what we learned from this is that other institutions across Africa could also take this approach of being more responsive. A number of times when you engage institutions, it takes a while for the wheel to grind, and there's a lot of bureaucratic processes you have to go through. And if you deal with international organizations or international universities that want to move or to achieve a certain result within a certain time frame, then time is really of the essence. And so the longer this process takes, the more it becomes difficult. I mean, people begin to draw back if you take longer in responding. But if you have clearly your goals aligned, and once you have such universities approach you, you're able to already articulate your goals clearly. You're able to show also what you've done in the past. This is always key. Ashesi had a track record. They had the data to back it, so it was easy to verify. It was easy to see where they were going, and it was easy to see that the ideas of Ashesi, ethics, entrepreneurship aligned very much to the ideals of ETH and also the industry partners. So this was a key consideration in going with Ashesi with this new model of collaboration in tertiary education. Yeah, thank you. I hope we've answered the question. If you have any further questions.
Yeah, that was well answered. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Do we have further questions?
Yes. I see a hand up. George, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful discussions. I have just one question, which actually could help me out, especially in terms of making recommendations. Just to highlight, I come from Rwanda, and I am in a higher education institution. And one of the challenges that I've actually kind of encountered, and I've seen it actually across different institutions in Africa, is to engage industry partners, especially to sustainably drive the higher education institution agenda in terms of preparing the students for employment. And this should be cross-cutting, not just in terms of tech, but also most of the times, those students who are in the social sciences, to some extent, they're always left behind. So I wanted to draw some experiences, maybe to get some ideas. For example, within this collaboration, Ashesi and ETH Zurich, what has been some of those strategies that both institutions have actually been put in place to sustainably, drive this collaboration? Because looking at some of the success stories, it's something I think others like me could actually learn from and kind of try to see if we could replicate them in a different country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George from Rwanda. Who wants to start? Nathan? Max? Do I start?
I think you start. You start, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, George, I find your question interesting. Yes, I share this concern. I've seen this a number of times. From our collaboration, or from developing this collaboration with industry, there's one thing that is clear, is that if educational institutions align their goals or their objectives to solving the needs or the challenges of industry, then industry is willing to support, industry is willing to work with you. I mean, it's always helpful to give something in exchange. I mean, industry wants something, institutions want funding, industry wants solutions to challenges they face, so that they can optimize processes, they can improve profits, they can expand into different sub-regions. So it's always helpful to solve the challenges of industry. With this collaborative, when we had a number of discussions with industry partners, it was clear there were challenges. Industries had challenges, with automation, with improving the process, making processes more efficient. They had challenges with hiring the right talents that would understand what the needs of the job market is. And so this program was aligned to solving the needs of the market. For example, if you take the internship part, which is the second semester of the third year of this program, students would work on projects that are relevant to the industry. So challenges industries have would be tailored as student projects, and the students would work on this and try and solve this. So the output from the from the education is easily absorbed by industry. It is too also relevant to the industry because this is a pressing need, a pressing challenge they need solutions to. The second approach is also that throughout the program, students will be in direct contact with industries. They will have mentors in the industries. So there's this ongoing engagement and interaction between the students and industry on one side. And so there's also the possibility for industries to even frame the research projects of these students as they go along before they even start in the final year. So these are, based on our experience, I would say, if you tailor your programs to address the needs of industry, then yes, they are excited and they are willing to fund or to support these programs. So this is one lesson we have learned. Nathan or Max can add to this.
Yeah, and not really much more. I think that was what I was going to say as well, that when it fits industry's needs, they're more likely to support it. So like I mentioned before, there was one partner, they have the money, but they didn't want to spend it because yes, they could see the need, but there was a course, they had a slightly different focus. Even though the whole range would fit them, there was a particular focus they wanted at the beginning. But once they saw other partners get on and they could see the prospect of what their interest was addressed, they got on as well. So targeting the needs of particular needs of industry or satisfying those needs, but it doesn't have to be tailored to one particular industry only. It has to be general enough. It helps get them on board to sponsor such programs. So I think key was addressing needs of industry.
Yeah, I fully support what Nathan, what you said, and Wilfred as well, and wouldn't have much to add, I have to say, because it's been well answered. And like as both reported, mapping out the needs and finding the match. No? So like research institutions still has a certain agenda as well in mind, but nevertheless, like the needs have to be matched with the industry. So that like on the one side you address what the industry wants to have, but then it's like they're investing money, so they want kind of a return on their investment. On the other side, you want to get to a certain degree, something out of this collaboration as well. So matching these needs from both ends and finding the sweet spot, that's the crux, and it's also the biggest challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max and Nathan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
When throughout this collaboration, there's one thing that is clear, that industries are looking for students or talents that are not just qualified technically, but also have the soft skills or leadership skills to lead teams and also to integrate easily into the working environment. So my question here is how important is, or how do we align the educational objectives or goals to inculcate more and more these soft skills courses, or courses that develop skills that are aligned to industry needs? How do we tweak? If you, for example, school tradition in Africa, the curriculum is already fixed in a certain direction. How do we start to reinvent this and to change the focus more to what the industry needs in this era of digitalization, of automation, of process improvement?
And so on the curriculum, we first made sure that the essential, the core of engineering was there. So there are a lot of control. There are more control courses than any other thing. Then there are the production and energy courses. But in addition, we have half-credit courses that give students a certain breadth. And it's kind of similar to what we do with our regular Ashesi curriculum, where students doing engineering or computer science or business would be taking classes from other fields as well, to give them a more rounded view of the world and to interact with other people better. And so both are there, but it still remains an engineering program. And then we also have a provision in the evenings to have seminars. Well, it may not be in the evening, but outside of class time to have seminars that will provide some further rounded knowledge. So some of them will be industry driven. If industry wants to share, it could be technical, it could be non-technical. There's that option to have supplementary education as part of the program. Increasingly, it's important because we find engineers, we've had competitions where Ashesi and another university present, they have actually done the same work, but then Ashesi students win that competition because of the way of presentation. The other team does exactly the same work, but just how you deliver it, how you interact with people is different. And some of it comes from what might not be considered a technical course. Those classes might require students to present a lot, to do research beyond what is normally a technical field. But that makes a person a lot more well-rounded, and that's what many employees are looking for.
Most of it, and maybe, but just to highlight, as well here the collaboration between Ashesi and ETH, because Ashesi has a very good track record in that sense, incorporating non-technical skills, if you want to call it like this, to technical degrees. Whereas ETH is very, very well versed in, how can you say, highly technical degrees, with very high-tech research combined as well, but not as strong on incorporating already in the get-go these non-technical degrees. And maybe that's a nice point to see as well, where we from the ETH side are also learning from Ashesi in that sense, because Ashesi does have a very good track record on that. And as Nathan reported, given that at the end, even though you might do the same work, the way how you do it and how you cooperate amongst your teammates and within your industry environment is just as crucial. And there we are actually relying on Ashesi as well for guidance with designing non-technical parts of it. And we matched them with appropriate professors from ETH who will deliver in tandem the non-technical degrees at Ashesi with Ashesi faculty. But it might be also a nice example of highlighting this collaboration where we both learn from each other. So Ashesi does learn to a certain degree on this technical aspects of the program from us, and on the other side we also learn on this non-technical aspects and on various other points as well, not only this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. So from your submissions, it's clear that going forward, soft skills like problem solving, critical thinking, self-management, project management, a number of soft skills are highly valued by industry, and other educational institutions would have to pay attention to empowering students with these skills, but also helping students to apply these skills like presentation skills. How do you put together a coherent story? You could have the same story, as Nathan rightly said, same output, but how do you put together your output to tell a compelling story? So going forward, this is looking more and more relevant for education, and I think a number of higher education institutions will benefit from including this into the curriculum, shaping the curriculum also around soft skills and other skills which are relevant for the job market in Africa.
Thank you so much for sharing this case study with us. And Bethel says he made 3 pages of notes from this session. So that's great. Obviously, it's been a very valuable session for everyone. Please, you may continue to engage with the panelists on the Hoover app. They're all there. You may send direct messages in the community to them. Then our next session starts in 15 minutes, and it's really on diversity, equity, and inclusion.